Good evening and welcome to Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. I'm your host, Joshua Solomon. The Honorable J.P. Marzullo, as you know, leads a secret life. He's still out there. It's a hard job. His secret mission out there, he's rounding up all the communists and throwing them back over the state line into Massachusetts where they belong. He's got some especially nasty communists he's working on that are giving him a hard time. He's going to need our prayers. But he'll be back soon enough after getting rid of them. He'll be back. We'll get them all out of the state before the primary. As always, Wilson Hill Pistol Club is the sponsor of Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades, located right here in Manchester, New Hampshire, at 1732 Lakeshore Road, the oldest sports shooting club in New Hampshire. We do not have a waiting list like other sports shooting clubs in this state. You can find us online at wilsonhillpistol.org. And you can come to our monthly membership meeting. It's open to the public on the first Wednesday of every month at 7 p.m. right after this show. Tonight we have Senator Victoria Sullivan from Manchester. How you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
So, what's going on?
Oh my goodness, where do we start? You want to start local, federal, state? There's so much to talk about lately.
So much going on. Well, let's start with Manchester.
Manchester.
Anything big going on in Manchester?
Sure. They just started, Joe Levaster, he'll probably talk about it on his show too. They just started demolishing the playground on Beach Street, which is just really sad to me. I don't know if you know familiar with this project that they're doing, but there's a $2.5 billion school project that they're doing.
Billion or
no, billions.
In Manchester?
Yeah.
Wait. The state budget isn't even that big.
Right. So
what's going on?
They're revamping a couple of schools that they did need the work, the middle schools, but they also are demolishing Beach Street School.
The whole school?
The whole school, and they're building a new one. It's going to house 700 elementary school kids. I mean, this is the worst idea that I have seen from the city.
So they're going to be doing that over the summer?
It's going to take years to do it. So these kids are displaced, and they're put in those mobile.
So
they spent over $20 million on those mobile school units.
Oh, the temporary trailers?
The temporary trailers that are $20 million.
Those temporary trailers that end up being permanent in every school district we've ever seen them placed.
Yeah. So they're going to put, I just don't know of anything. Usually if you're looking at education, and parents choose small schools. Like if you look at private schools, they're small schools because you can actually get a much better education in a small school. Mm-hmm. They're going to put more than 700 elementary school kids in one building. So it's just basically going to be a warehouse for kids. There's already 77 different languages spoken at the Beach Street School.
How many?
77. So
how?
Yeah.
How can there be?
That's what the statistics are. 77 languages spoken at that school. So now they're taking a school that has about 300, 400 kids, and they're going to add another 300 or 400 kids to it.
Do we have teachers that are fluent in 77 different languages?
No. So can you see? So this is where it's the lowest performing school in the state, Beach Street School. And that is one of the reasons. So you would think that they'd want to have smaller populations, maybe break up the population there, send them to other elementary schools, sort of lift kids out of poverty. But no, they're putting them into, and it is, arguably one of the hardest neighborhoods in the city too. So, so instead of like lifting them up out of this situation, they're instead of taking kids from other neighborhoods and putting them in here, so they will have over 700. The number's like 740 kids or something right now they're looking at to put into one school building. Elementary school. I just can't imagine. So I struggle a lot for a lot of reasons because looking at the studies, it's wrong.
How does the school board get this stuff passed?
People came out and spoke against it, but they were just ignored. A lot of citizens came out and spoke against it, but they were just ignored. But if you look at the studies, every study will tell you that this is a disaster waiting to happen. There's nothing good that is going to come out of having that many kids in one school. And when my kids were in school, elementary school. Go ahead.
In all fairness, the executives on the school board are going to get a lot of money and raises out of this. I can guarantee you that.
Oh, probably. I mean, that's
what we're
right. Well, because they want to make it a community center, so they want to have health services in there for the kids. So everything that they can do to remove parents from the equation and have the kids in a situation where the parents aren't, where they can make decisions for the kids themselves.
I love the catch-22 here, right? The school systems, they want to hide, they want to control your children.
Mm-hmm.
They want to control all of our children. They want to ram whatever woke agenda down their throats.
Yep.
And they want it hidden from the parents.
Yep.
They want whatever the children do behavior-wise at school to be hidden from the parents.
Yep.
And they want the parents completely out of the picture.
Yes.
Yet, if the child becomes a problem at school, the teachers in the school are going to say, oh, the parents aren't involved enough. The parents haven't got,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
right. But as soon as the parent wants to get involved, get out of here.
They only want parents involved if they're fundraising. They really don't want parents. And I watched this happen. My kids are 2 years apart. I mean, they're young men now, but when they were in elementary school, I watched as my older son, I was very involved in the school. I was in the building. Other moms came in and we volunteered in the classroom. We were like teachers, helpers. We did all kinds of things, ran the bake sales. And then by the time my other child came up, it was like a totally different school. By the time he got into kindergarten, there was very little time for play. They barely got recess. I used to watch them have quiet lunches. This is one of the reasons we got kicked out. So we had about 400 kids in the school, maybe a little bit over, and they would not let them speak at lunch. They had quiet lunches because it was too noisy if the kids were actually socializing, communicating. Then they turn around and say, well, kids don't know how to socialize and communicate. We need to add like SEL
because
into...
you took away their
You
ability.
take away their ability to learn these things. And even they used to have like lunch buddies that would come and sit at the table and sort of prompt conversations with the kids and keep the kids engaged with each other. And then they got rid of all of that. I saw the big shift, and basically they just wanted parents to come in and fundraise, but do not tell us how to do policy. We don't want your input. We don't want you talking about curriculum. We don't want any of it. But now you've got, and they could barely get them out for recess half the time. So now you've got 700 and something kids. How do you manage lunches? How do you manage recess? How do you manage the other things that go into that? Are you going to have to tell all the kids they can't talk because you'll have 350 kids in each lunch, so it's too noisy, so they can't talk to each other? The whole thing is so bad, and I think if more parents understood how detrimental this is going to be for kids, they'd be speaking up. But I also feel like a lot of people did come to the meeting, they did speak up, and they were just shut down. While they were there in the meeting, they tabled it. And people thought they were heard. And then the next meeting, they took it off the table and passed it because people weren't there. So it was very sneaky. And for the people that did come out, now they feel like, well, why should I bother to show up, right?
I'm confused. Doesn't everything go to a general vote anyway?
Right.
Right.
So
Like-
what they
like-
did was they tabled it while we were there.
I feel like the Manchester School Board has a little bit too much power.
Oh yeah, this was the aldermanic board too, because they have to ultimately talk about the money. Like they have to approve the money. The school board can't actually approve. They can approve it and say like we agree with this,
But you
but the
can't
aldermen
approve
actually
$2
have the
billion
purse strings.
in money that the city doesn't have.
Well, some of it comes from the state, some of it, not all of it. Some of it's gonna be bonded. So they also have the skateboard park. Do you know what the skateboard park? So the skateboard park, they are going to do skateboard park, pickleball, which we already have a pickleball court. We also already have a skateboard park, and they're going to do some improvements to the ball field. $2.5 million, but by the time they're done, it's going to be $6 million because they're bonding it. And instead of going to businesses like other towns around us are doing skateboard parks, and instead of going to other businesses and helping, like saying we want to raise funds, we want to have public-private partnerships, going to businesses and saying like, will you donate, and raising the money, or looking for grants even, they just have their hand out to the taxpayers yet again. So by the time it's all said and done, because it's being bonded, it's going to be between $5 and $6 million. Then they have on Hanover Street, they want to redo Hanover Street at the end.
I saw the plans
Get
for
rid of
that.
25 parking spots because parking isn't hard enough in Manchester.
Well, yeah, you can't start continuing to get rid of parking spots. We did this during COVID. We got rid of parking spots.
It was a disaster.
We actually sectioned off
Yeah.
parking spots for outdoor eating, and then it became semi-permanent.
Yep.
And so we're just
Yep.
we're making the downtown situation worse.
Well, not only that, but there will be construction down there for a very long time. So that means any of those businesses that are near there are disrupted. They're not going to be able to have business. For the Palace Theater, which is really a gem for our city, people come here for that. It's removing parking from that immediate area, 25 spots from that immediate area. So for the elderly people that are, disabled, that might be looking for parking in that, people have brought to my attention, it's not actual handicap parking there, but those spaces are closer than going to a parking garage. And a lot of people that if they need on-street parking because they're handicapped, they'll show up early for a show. They'll wait till they can get that space. But those spaces will be removed, 25 from right around the Palace Theater. So they'll be forced to go into parking garages. I know a lot of people that are already saying, I'm not coming down there then because I won't do parking garages in Manchester. The other parking they'll have to shift up closer to the shelter on Manchester Street, and people won't park up near there, and I don't blame them, especially at night. So these are really bad decisions that are costing the taxpayers a lot of money in the city.
How can anyone justify the spending of all of this money, whether it's for skate parks or removing parking spaces? You're trying to you're trying to beautify the city, but you're not even addressing the problems the city already has. Let's
100%.
Let's fix some issues here.
So for instance,
right? If we're going to spend this kind of money, that money can be spent fixing other issues, homeless issues, vagrancy issues.
Like sidewalks that actually need fixing, because Hanover Street does not need fixing. Those sidewalks are actually really nice. I was leaving St. Joseph's with my son on St. Joseph's Church on Pine Street on Sunday, and there's literally a signpost that's broken on the sidewalk, and somebody put a Dunkin' Donuts cup over it so people don't get hurt on it so they can see it. How about we fix the things that are like the roads, the potholes, the sidewalk pieces that are missing? How about the very basic needs, the safety issues in the city before we start doing beautification? Plus, those businesses are going to lose so much business over that course of time, and they're barely just coming back from COVID.
We're no longer doing parades of any kind, right? If you can call
now you're just trying to get my Irish out. You can't talk about the parade because I'm like, that is the biggest fail that the city has done.
Because that's taking money away from the businesses that count on it.
Do you know
Irish pubs that are on Elm Street.
Do you know the parade debacle? Do you know what happened?
Are we going to get rid of Taco Tuesday as well?
Well,
the taco.
Do you know why they canceled the parade? So, another brilliant move by the city. So they purchased these big yellow metal barriers.
Oh, the barriers, yeah.
Mm-hmm. But the grant only paid for so many. So they decided the route could only be as long as we have as many of these barriers, right? So those barriers only go as far as...
We didn't have those barriers 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
We didn't have them last year. We used to use the dump trucks.
And we survived.
Yeah, the dump trucks would block off the street. The kids loved it because they get to talk to the rubbish guy. The highway department loved it because they liked being out there with the people. And if there was ever an emergency, they move quickly. You can get those things out of the way. These barriers are 750 pounds apiece. They have to be moved by a truck that we had to buy, a specialty truck they had to buy. It takes a lot of manpower and increased the price of having a parade because the manpower it takes to put these in place, because you just have one guy that brought up a pickup truck and left it there. Now you need all these people to put this down. Then they have everybody, because they don't have enough to go the whole parade route, they had to stop it at the bridge. So now they have the safety committee had the plan to have everybody line up on the bridge, all the floats line up on the bridge. I don't know any safety person that tells you to line up on a bridge because that's the most vulnerable place to be. And then because they've got 2,000 people in the parade, the St. Patrick's Day parade, can you imagine lining up 2,000 people on Bridge Street? So go all the way through the west side and block up traffic over there. And if there's an emergency like that, they just got rid of one egress, right? Going on the bridge to get out of the city. And the committee finally said, people are saying, oh, the city didn't cancel it. The committee did. The committee did because there was no logistical way to do this. It made it less safe to do the things that the safety committee came up with for them to do. So they had to say, like, we can't do this because so the Christmas parade was like that, and it was not. I mean, I don't want to ditch just the parade
So
people,
how can
but
we change the
it wasn't
rules
good.
so that we can continue to start it over at 1750, right? All parades.
I
Christmas parade next year.
Yeah, which they won't call that, by the way. They had a whole meeting about how they have to call it the holiday parade because they don't want the phone calls from people saying that
So-
it's not inclusive.
So now, for safety reasons,
Yeah.
because we can't start the parade, because we have to start the parade at Bridge Street, and because the staging area has to be over Bridge Street, which is a safety issue. So now, for safety reasons, we have to cancel the parades.
Yeah,
And the reason we have to start at Bridge Street is because we don't have enough of these barriers.
right.
But now that we're not having parades, we're not using the barriers that we spent how much
Well, they're
on?
having the Pride Parade. They're having
They're having the important
the
parade.
Veterans Day parade, because it's small. There's no floats. Like, it's a small parade, right? The Christmas parade they tried to do, and there were huge gaps between the floats because they just couldn't maneuver the same way. They used to set up a Brady Sullivan. That was their staging area, and then everyone just came down. Watching the safety committee meeting, they even said, well, maybe we can still have them stage at Brady Sullivan, then give them a police escort down to Bridge Street. None of it made sense.
Well, that
As you stated,
the police escort would be the beginning of the parade. Okay,
Right,
now
right.
we're parading.
well, they usually are anyway.
Well, we should. Like I said, that parking lot behind the Brady Sub, which is 1750.
Yeah.
That is the perfect location.
It-
It's massive.
It's worked forever. It's worked forever, and no one's. It's. I think it's because that thing happened in New Orleans where someone drove into the parade route, whatever. So if something happens somewhere else in the world, it doesn't mean that everybody has to have the same reaction to it. We're not Vegas. I went to Vegas.
but
I mean,
if you put a
New
big old
Orleans.
dump truck at the intersection, they run into the dump truck. It's probably a little more secure than these barriers.
That's what they've always done for the taco tour and everything else. I mean, the barriers aren't even high. Like, they may be knee high. That's it. So, I mean, and that might get rid of one kind of element. But here's the fact. If you really wanted to have secure safety, you don't have anything, which is pretty much what they accomplished, right? Because everything has some risk to it. There's just nothing that you do in life that doesn't have some risk. I mean, a float could get away and somebody gets hurt. And you've seen that happen. There've been accidents in parades before, but there's just no way to get rid of any element that is completely 100% safe. They have the Manchester Marathon is 26 miles. Are they going to have them run up and down, like, between Bridge Street and Veterans Park 26 times to be able to have or are they going to let them go around with wooden barriers around the city like they always have? Because if that's what they're going to do, that's in November, then I'm going to really be upset that they don't let parades just happen the way they used to.
Again, so somebody made money on these barriers,
Yeah. Oh yes, a
Right.
lot of money. Yeah.
and somebody in Manchester recommended those barriers, and
Yeah.
probably had stock in that company of some sort, right? I mean, that's how it goes. Whenever we mandate that a government agency buys something, somebody makes a lot of money on it, and somebody's insider trading on it. I don't have any names, but I'm telling you, it happened.
The whole thing is ridiculous. And I would say the same thing about the buildings, $2.5 billion. Like, who's making money on the backside of that? And you've got to look at people and look at how they raised funds over the years to be in the positions they're into. Not making accusations, just asking questions. But there's got to be, because when things don't make sense, there's something else happening. And there's a lot happening in the city right
And
now
it's
that
all
doesn't make
happening
sense.
from the party that complains and whines about rich people, but they're the ones. It's them. As Gary used to say, he says,
bless
whenever you are accused by a Democrat of doing something, it's because they're doing it first, and they're trying to deflect blame. And so when they start complaining about rich insider trading and rich corporations, they're the ones making those corporations rich. They're the ones in bed with them. with all of these mandates. We're gonna
Well, yeah, and
mandate
you-
that this take place, and it's going to cost the taxpayers a whole bunch of money, and the people that are gonna benefit are not the taxpayers.
No, and when I'm knocking on doors and I'm talking to folks, the number one thing is property taxes. Like people are really upset about their property taxes. I'm paying more for my property taxes than I am for my mortgage right now.
My property taxes have gone up a minimum of $1,000 a year for the last 5 years running.
It's insane, and a lot of that people don't understand. We've got a bill right now that was heard today. Senator Lang's bill passed the Senate. It's in the House now. It's SB 101. It's open enrollment. You may have heard a lot about this bill. The sky is falling because we want kids to have the opportunity to go to any school, public school they want to. The state money would follow the child to wherever they went. I can tell you, with 700 kids being pushed into the Beach Street School, a lot of families will choose not to send their kids there. That they will take advantage of open enrollment and not send them there. I passed intra-district school choice last year, so they can right now opt them out to go to another elementary school if they want to in the city. So I don't think that school is even going to be filled. But with the open enrollment, a lot of the false information out there is that it's somehow taking money away from the towns that we have, like the towns and the schools. So
No.
same thing with EFAs. They say that about the EFAs, and the fact is, so right now Manchester, it costs about $21,000 to educate a kid in Manchester. And if that child chooses to use the Education Freedom Account program to go to a different school, a private school, or be homeschooled, they get about $5,500.
Yeah, it's
Goes-
not the
goes
full
with that.
21,000.
No, that's just the state money follows
Right.
them. Now the
Now-
local taxpayers are not paying $17,000 for that child to be educated, or close to that.
Right.
Yeah,
But the schools will still raise their town taxes to make up the
Yes.
imagined difference that they think they're losing,
yes. So
right? So
Right.
you're no longer educating this child because this child is there, so you no longer need that $21,000.
right.
So you're not losing money. You don't need that money to educate a classroom full of children that aren't there because they're elsewhere.
Right. So we've got schools that are educating kids in public schools for upwards of $40,000. So when that child takes that EFA money, again, it's like $5,500, then they're saving $34,500, right, on that kid. So when they're but then again, and you'll see Josiah Bartlett put out some great graphs about this. Our enrollment looks like this on the graph, just plummets, and then our expenditures, our spending is going like this. And state funding has increased over the years. So the state funding continues to increase. Local property taxes continue to increase. But the bulk of what people are paying for their property taxes is local school
70%
taxes.
is the state average. 70% of your property taxes go to your school,
Local schools, yeah.
and those school enrollment numbers, like you said, they're going down, but the cost per student is going up. Right? And like you said, we got some districts are spending, what, 40 grand per student?
$40,000 per student.
Whereas you've got the private schools and the charter schools are educating these kids for like 13 grand a year.
Yeah, I think,
Right? And getting
yeah.
better results.
well, even charter schools,
Right.
they're only getting the state portion of the money. So anything else that they need, they fundraise for.
Right.
Right? For private schools, I know for elementary school, they're educating them in the city for about $8,000 a child for private Christian schools. Trinity is somewhere around just under $16,000 a child. Holy Family for high school is about $13,000 or $14,000 a
And they're
child.
running circles around the
Yes.
public school as
Yeah.
far as proficiency
Yeah.
scores, where the state average across all subjects is something like 52% proficiency.
And
I mean, we're
yep,
barely above the 50% mark. And most of the school districts, if you go to math or English, the proficiencies are at 42 and 43%.
so Beach Street School is at under 10% proficiency.
But we're throwing more money. More
Yeah.
money does not equal a better education.
No.
The money is not the answer, yet the school districts, the administrators who are making six-figure salaries are demanding that you pay more in your taxes and for more school funding and getting nothing back out of it. What's angering me is that we don't have accountability.
Right.
If you want this money, I want to see improvements over, I want to see,
Yeah.
I want to see 1980s level of proficiency. I want to see kids graduating with 80, 90% proficiency.
No, what we're
We
seeing
were
is
number one up
Yep.
until the creation of the
Department of
education
Education.
department in 1970s under Carter.
Yeah.
We were number one,
Yeah.
and now we don't even crack the top 50 in the world.
Well, and you're seeing, like, we've got a bill in right now that it's called the Charlie Act, and it talks about sort of getting rid of the indoctrination in schools, and we've got the divisive concepts bill that's in to say the whole wheel of power and privilege. I think you heard about that. The teacher had it in there telling kids basically, like, if you're a white male, then you're going to surpass your peers, and if you're a black male, like, you're far behind coming out of the gate. And I actually had a mom reach out to me, and she said, so my husband and I work, we're both black, but we work, we are married, we have children, we have a house. So my son went to school and was told that he's behind his peers
No, it's
that
an
don't
insult.
have all of those things.
It's an insult. They're doing
Absolute
this at the national
insult.
level too.
Yeah.
Oh, the minorities are too dumb to be able to get
Yep.
driver's licenses.
Well, women are too, apparently.
So
We're
you
too
can't
dumb
vote,
too.
right?
Yeah.
And they think that their constituents are dumb.
I know.
They think the average American is dumb. That's the way they treat them, and that's what you're going to get when you start hammering that into someone's head. Then they're just going to start. Okay, well, as long as I can't do it on my own, then I'll take the handout. I'll take the handout. I'll take the handout.
Yeah.
That mentality is what's making it worse, right?
So they're out there now saying that women are too dumb to be able to get a ID for voting, right? But these are the same people, because apparently we can't figure out how to show that our names changed.
But you need your ID to buy alcohol, cigarettes, register a car. You need your ID to shovel snow in New York City, right?
These same people were 100% behind Real ID, and Real ID was much harder
Well,
to get.
It's all about tracking. We want to track you, but we also want to pretend that you're dumb enough not to be tracked.
So Real ID, you had to show your name changed in order to get Real ID. Same for a passport, the same kind of documentation. And people did not push back and say women were too stupid to get Real ID, because they wanted you to have that. They wanted you to have that. But Real ID does not prove citizenship.
Right.
Right. So now to say that you need to show your name change, that, like, they're saying you're too stupid to be able to do that. And to prove citizenship, you just need a birth certificate. You can get a $15 wherever you were born. Right? The city hall for whatever town you lived in when you were born.
It's amazing to me how they try these scare tactics, and they want to say, oh, the citizenship is too dumb to do this, too dumb to do that, too dumb to do this. And what's amazing to me is the number of Democrat and liberal voters who fall for it.
Right.
And they buy into it, and they see the soundbite or whatnot, and they just take it as face value as what they're told. And I'm going to do something I've never done before, and I'm going to talk about my ex-wife.
Okay.
Right? We're not okay. She is a teacher. She is a teacher in this state, and she's recently contacted me. We've been divorced for 2 decades.
Wow.
She's recently contacted me. She's asked me for our original marriage certificate. Okay? Because she wants proof of her name change. Because she thinks she's not going to be able to vote coming up. But she has been all along. She thinks that there's new rules, these new voting ID rules, if the what's the Save America
Save America Act, yeah.
if
Save
that
America.
passes, that she won't be able to vote. She's falling for it.
Yep.
Right? And that's what that like no, you're registered to vote, you've been registered to vote, you're like that. This is not going to affect you and your ability to vote. This is to go after the folks that are on the voter rolls who shouldn't be there.
Right.
You are obviously there for a reason, and panicking about something that hasn't happened yet is not going to solve your problem.
Plus, if you have a passport, you're all set anyway. You can just show that.
Exactly.
So, and you would need that, I mean, if she's going to travel anywhere, she probably needs that anyway, because you need that for your passport.
Right.
You have to show. Because
But-
I
but
recently got mine,
The,
and I
the
had to
point
have
I'm trying to make is that they put out these scare tactics, and intelligent, reasonable people are falling for it.
Yep. But again, when they wanted to force real ID on everybody, they didn't see it
Nobody
as a
complained.
problem.
Nobody
They
batted
did
an
not
eye.
see it as a problem at all. And this is only because they know that if they require for these pieces of identification, they're going to have people that fall off the voter rolls because they're not qualified to vote here.
But they need to. Like
No, I know.
There's
They're
an
not
element of
supposed to be
common sense.
voting here.
They've gone so far over the
Yep.
edge because they don't want Trump to have any
Yep.
positive news.
Well, it's
They
the
don't want
same-
Republicans to have any positive news. And
Yeah.
and we say it's Trump derangement syndrome, but it's really derangement syndrome.
Yeah.
Because they did this with Bush, right?
Mm-hmm.
When Obama was in for 8 years straight, all the way up until the day Obama left office, they blamed Bush for every single problem they had, right? It was George Bush this, George Bush that, everything, and so they it's this derangement syndrome where they don't want to give the other side any reason to have success or any credit for success. And even though this is absolute common sense, they will go and they will kill each other over the idea that they don't want to support it.
Yeah.
And the only reasonable person lately has been Fetterman. The
I
only
know.
he's the
How
only
crazy is
reasonable
that?
Democrat who's we're not fans of Fetterman on this show, but we acknowledge that he's a reasonable human being with some common sense and understands what's good for America and what's not for America.
Right.
So
Yep.
anyway,
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so with all that stuff happening on a national level, that is so crazy. Again, they're so afraid of this passing that it really tells you a lot about who they think that their voters are.
yeah,
Right? They're really afraid that if we have legitimate.
They know that their voters are low information voters. They know that their voters are illegal immigrants. They know that
Yeah.
they shouldn't be voting. And that's the other catch-22. If you think that your constituents are so dumb that they can't get a driver's license, then what do you think about having a test? All right? Before you're allowed to vote, let's pass an IQ test. Oh, no, right?
Right.
So, right? We don't want that. We want the dumb people voting for us, right? You're right. So,
Well, I mean, they count.
obviously that would be unconstitutional, but
Right.
if you proposed that your voters actually have to pass a civics exam before they're allowed to vote, oh, you don't want that, right?
No.
Right?
Nope. But you see it, the way that they have these talking points that are out there that we were talking about this today, they'll just throw them out there and within an hour, it's everywhere. Everybody regurgitates the same message, right?
Well,
And-
Rush used to hammer on that quite a bit, right? You would see it in the morning news. You'd see that every single
Yep.
broadcaster on every single channel would use the same phrase,
Yep.
a phrase that did not exist in the American vocabulary prior to that day,
Right.
but it suddenly exists in every single liberal newscaster's vocabulary this morning. And we actually, I was a very avid listener of Rush. He came across a listener or a fan or whatever actually accidentally found a book. It was left on a bus or a subway somewhere in Washington, D.C., and it was a talking points book with a mailing list in it. And
Wow.
it was literally, there is a mailing list, an email list, that everyone is on in the Democrat Party and in the liberal media, that they have the talking points, they pass it out, and that's why we see it almost immediately.
We need to
because
organize.
that list exists. And he actually went through it several times. He said, well, the talking points are out, right? And this is where it came from. So we know this to be true. It's on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot where I was going with that. But those talking points, like you said, once it happens, all of a sudden.
Well, yeah, and you see with like the
Right.
EFAs, the Education Freedom Accounts, and you see with open enrollment, they all the Democrats are out there regurgitating the same thing, and all people message me and say, "Is this true?" I'm like, "No, they're lying to you.
Right.
This isn't the truth." With one of the open enrollment bills, they had graphics ready, and it said. This has been forced through, it's fast tracked, whatever, stop it. That bill is
Right.
over in the House, it's sitting there until committee of conference. Nothing was fast tracked, but everyone believed it and everyone was freaking out, and they started doing warrant articles saying that kids, we're going to say that nobody can leave our school district. Like, that's insane.
Right.
You can't say no one can
Right,
leave
we
your
had-
school
we
district.
We had that in Goffstown
And if
this
you've got
last time around.
declining enrollment, why
Right.
wouldn't you want to give your school the ability? Now no one was forced to take a certain number of kids. That was going to be determined by the district. You already have so many seats open for capacity. You already factor in how many kids will be coming in or out of your school district in a year. So you get to determine the capacity. But if you've got empty seats, wouldn't you want a kid in there that's bringing state dollars into your school?
No, because that's extra money that they can just spread around between salaries and whatnot. So we had this warrant article, a couple of them in Goffstown this last time around, and it was just insane to me. Goffstown was willing to take students in whose sending towns paid tuition, but the warrant article says, okay, we're not going to let anybody leave, and we won't be paying tuition out, right?
The Supreme Court already said they can't do that.
Right. So that was the warrant article. I'm like, that makes no sense. You're going to accept money, but you're not going to allow any of your students to leave under any circumstances, EFAs, whatever. And you can't write a warrant article to do that.
Well, the Supreme Court already ruled, because there was a school district that had open enrollment, because you can have open enrollment now if you want to. It's law, but open enrollment bill would say that everybody is open enrollment.
Right.
So there is a district that does. A student came and went to their school. They went to the sending district to bill for it, and the sending district said, "We're not paying you for that child. We didn't say they could leave," and that. The school took them to court, and the Supreme Court said, you have to pay for that child. Like, you have to do it. So they can, the way that I believe it's being structured now, the current bill, would be the same way as charter schools. So that state money would follow the child if they left your district. The district would not have to take their local taxes to follow the child. Only the special education would, I believe, because that follows the children to private school or charter schools now. But only the state money would follow. So your local taxes aren't touched.
Why wouldn't that just be the standard? That just needs to be, yeah. So.
And when you're talking about the expenses, we've seen about a 24% increase in administrative costs. That's where all your tax money is going. It's going to those high-end paid administrators that make over $100,000 a year.
When you see administrative costs, that means salaries to the teachers' union contracts that we have no say in, and to
they have more because they shut down the schools and they put kids in isolation. They've hired more psychologists to take care of the behavioral issues.
Yeah, these are the psychologists and the teachers who are encouraging your children to walk out and protest during school hours.
And who also want to hide it
and
from
you're
you if your
paying
kids
them
are
more
using
to
a
not
different.
educate your children.
Yeah, and also want to hide it from you if your kids are using a different name or gender at school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So speaking of these administrative costs and the teachers' contracts, I've said this before on the show, and I'm going to say it again because you're on the Senate side. I want a bill.
Okay.
All right. We have these situations in all the towns and all the districts where the teachers' union negotiates contracts.
Yes.
And they negotiate these contracts with the selectmen or the aldermen or whichever board is in charge of dealing with contracts for whatever district you're in. These elected officials, these elected selectmen, are not professional negotiators. They're not necessarily negotiators, they're not necessarily lawyers. I mean, they could be if the right person ran, but they're not. But the teachers' union, they send in lawyers and negotiators, and they browbeat these selectmen into contracts.
Yep.
And all of this negotiation takes place behind closed doors
Yes.
because it's private, right? And so the people who are actually paying for these contracts have no visibility into the negotiation process. I don't begrudge folks raises. I don't like the fact that the raises are negotiated in private for my money.
Right.
It's public money, all right? If a private organization negotiated with a private company or a private organization, that can be private. I don't care. They can negotiate whatever contract they want. But we have a private entity negotiating for public money, for my tax money. That should not be private. We can have those negotiations without mentioning names of teachers, social security numbers of teachers. That PII, that personal information, personal identifying information, does not have to exist in these negotiations.
Right.
I want to know what's going into the negotiation of these contracts.
Yeah, because
we're
they're usually by
negotiating-
tier too, so
we're-
you wouldn't even need that
exactly,
information.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Why? What tiers are getting what pay raises and why?
Well,
And
yeah.
and are those pay raises is that contract based on some sort of responsibility? Right?
And so we saw this with
Accountability.
the pensions too,
so
right?
I want exactly.
Yeah.
But that's fine. That's fine for teachers unions and police and Department of Public Works. All of these pensions and contracts, I'm okay with negotiating those contracts. What I'm not okay with is that negotiation being private for
Yeah.
public money. You got a private entity wanting public money. Well, then it should be a public negotiation. That's what I want. I
And
want
so-
that changed.
And the city will, a lot of times you'll hear the cities talk about how, our taxes are high because the state is downshifting these costs. They're downshifting. So we don't downshift costs. We can't, right? It's in our constitution, we can't downshift costs. What they generally talk about is the fact that they have the pension system. And some years ago, the cities and towns decided to come together and partake in the state pension system. So everything was sort of brought to the state level. But they continued to negotiate their pensions here on the local level. So they were able to be very, very, very generous because now they were sharing the pot, right? You saw that this year where we had $278 million that one group of people wanted to have their pensions increased by, $278 million. So when the state had to come together and say, you know what, we can't take 100% of this anymore because these aren't state employees, they're local employees. So you guys have to now take care of a certain percentage more than you were. And they freak out and say you're downshifting the cost. They're our employees. So I represent Manchester, South End, and the town of Litchfield. So Litchfield is paying the pensions for Manchester.
Right.
You know, like that's how the state pension system works. If all the little towns are paying into the pensions for the cities that have all the resources, and they don't even have, I think they have one ambulance or they share an ambulance with Hudson or something. So when they're saying that they're downshifting costs, they're actually just returning them to where they began, and the cities and towns upshifted them to the state.
Mm-hmm.
But because they don't have responsibility for those negotiations, because it's part of this big pool, then they can be super generous with that money, with our money,
Right.
right? Because again, no one's seeing it happen.
Well, that's where I'm getting at, right?
Yeah.
If you're negotiating for public money, then it should be a public negotiation.
Yep. I don't disagree.
And so I want something to start happening in that area because as soon as those negotiations become public, as soon as those lawyers who are browbeating the selectmen and the aldermen in behind closed doors, as soon as that discussion becomes public, that will we'll start to understand why our
Yeah.
school taxes are going through the roof.
Yep. We're starting to see the teachers union dissolve a little bit on the state level. Corey, I think his last name is DeAngelis. He's working a lot. He does a lot with school choice and stuff. But he's also working with this teachers alliance that is giving teachers a place to go, where they can sort of come together with ideas without being a part of the union, because the union has gone so far left and made so many public statements about the direction they want to go in that does not coincide with the values and the beliefs of a lot of teachers. And there's finally this place where they can come together and say, you know what, we don't want to be a part of that. I know so many teachers in the city that are conservatives that aren't even allowed to talk about that. Right? Because the unions have their thumb on them all the time. And they actually have union representatives in every building to keep their eye on the people. Right? So I think
we're out of line, you're being watched.
So I think we're going to start to see sort of an organic movement of people leaving these unions because of how political they've come. They're no longer just negotiating or handling their bargaining agreements. They've become political entities, and they want to push policy and support a certain party when that doesn't represent all of the people that are part of their union. You can see that with the police and the firemen too. Like, a lot of police and firemen are conservatives in their values. They're Republicans, but their unions always go with the Democrats.
Yeah. I know someone who's in a local carpenters union, and the union says, hey, you need to donate to this, and you need to advocate for this, and we want you to go and hand out flyers for this as part of your union duties. And this fellow said, no, I don't buy into that. I'm not doing that. Right?
Yeah.
Because the unions are pushing on it,
Yeah.
are pushing it. And the reason they're pushing it is because the unions are the ones that are lobbying the Congress to all the liberals, and they're getting all the special treatment back, right? It's all one big circle. So you can't be open about your political affiliation when you're in school, but you can be open about your sexual orientation and whatnot while you're in school, and up to a point. You can't be so open that you have an OnlyFans account.
Apparently McLaughlin got into a little bit of trouble with that. A nurse, I guess she's a contracted nurse, so not like an actual district employee. They contract nurses in, and so she was a contract nurse, and somehow I think she had some stuff on TikTok too, and somebody found her on TikTok and then found out that she had an OnlyFans page, and she was escorted from the school and asked to leave, and then she put up a thing that said, I got fired for my side hustle, their loss. So she has no remorse over the whole situation. But I mean, I think you need to have some kind of boundaries if you want to have an OnlyFans page, or you want to work in an adult club and you're a nurse. Maybe you don't want to be in a school with that job. Maybe you want to be someplace else.
I think I agree. You can do whatever you want. You can be whatever legal profession you want. Whatever on the side, on the internet, do whatever you want. But it needs to be appropriate, right? Yeah. We've always said on this show that as far as this whole gender ideology and surgery and all of that stuff, we've always said, you're an adult, that's your business. We don't want it around the children, right?
Right.
There's a reason why you can't drink, smoke, vote, shoot, join the military until you're 18 years old. There's a reason for
Some
that.
of those things you can't do till you're
You
21.
can't enter into contracts.
Yep.
Any type of a contract.
Yep.
All right, you can't. These are all things that we have, as a society, have set a age limit on for generations.
Yeah.
Hundreds of years. Yet, we want to say that this child has the mental capacity to ask for surgery at the age of 12 or 13, or
Right.
I've seen as young as 8 in some
Right.
areas of the country. Right? So we've
But
always
even at that,
said,
you can't
we've
go
always
to
said,
a bar and get a
this
drink
isn't-
until you're 21. Like, they
Right.
will freak out. You can't buy cigarettes until you're 21, but you can decide that you're going to go into hormones that are going to ruin your body for life. You can lop off healthy body parts. You can make all those decisions that you want to, but you can't have a beer or a smoke.
Right. And so we've always said, this is about the children. We want that whole business of, with the drag queens in schools and whatnot. oh, you're just a
That
bigot and
seems to have
whatnot.
died down.
No,
I wonder
but
if that, like the
the
last couple
idea
of years.
is the sexualization of these
Yeah,
children, because it's
100%.
all what it's about. Whether
Yep.
it's the drag queens or the gender ideology, LGBT, whatever,
Yep.
it's all of it comes down to sexualizing children.
Yes.
And we've always said no. There's a reason why they're called children, and there's a reason why there's an age delineation between children and adults, and entering into contracts and not entering into contracts, and smoking and drinking and shooting. And
Yeah.
where did common sense go when we started allowing
No,
this to
yeah,
happen?
And even like kids' cartoons and kids' channels that used to be safe to put on, you could put it on while you're doing dishes
Oh,
or
no.
whatever. Your kids watching TV, it's a safe channel. Not even anymore. They're targeting kids that are very, very young with the transgender
they're doing
ideology
it
and this
in
other stuff.
Disney movies.
Yeah.
They're doing it in all of these places
Nickelodeon.
that were
Yep.
that were the magical pieces of our childhood.
Yeah. Yep. I don't know. They just want to damage kids, and I don't understand it. Like their minds aren't even ready to wrap
They
their
want
head
to
around those
normalize it.
things.
They want to mainstream it all, and
Yep.
and we've seen this in history,
Yeah.
thousands of years, through the Roman Empire, through the Age of Enlightenment, and society breaks down. Society goes into this
Yep.
um, hedonistic phase, and the world collapses, and then we learn from that and we rebuild. Right? We're going there.
We had, for that Charlie Act bill, we had a young woman that came in front of us, and she was talking about how she was queer. Like when I was growing up, you didn't call someone that because it was derogatory, but
Right.
apparently that's not the thing anymore. And how when she was in elementary school, her teacher was reading to her about how some people had two moms and some people had two dads and some people were queer and some people were this. And she said, and it didn't harm me. And when I got older, I reflected on that, and I knew I was queer. And I'm like, and now I'm a teacher. And I just thought, you are the reason that we need to protect kids. Right? You should not have been subjected to that when you were very young and in elementary school.
Right.
I'm not saying it's the reason that's our lifestyle, but I'm saying that you
Unfortunately, and
shouldn't have been
this is an
subjected to that as a
unpopular
kid.
opinion, but some of the folks who consider themselves in that community as adults, they may not admit it, and they will go to their graves without admitting it, but some of them are because of what they were exposed to as a child,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So it was just interesting that she didn't understand that, like, why we would want to protect kids because she had been through it. She saw it as a normal kind of conversation because it was put to her when she was in a very young age. And I was just like, why do we talk about sexuality with kids in elementary school? Like, why is that a thing? Do you know that we teach about HIV starting in kindergarten for kids?
Is it part of the official curriculum?
Yeah, it is. And so my husband's a cancer survivor, and he had a form of leukemia, and he was sick when my kids were little, and we used to explain it to him like he had sick blood. That's what we would say to them. Like, we'd have to go to the hospital and stuff because he went through chemo a couple of times, and I would just explain it as Daddy has sick blood. So when they were in school, I said to the health teacher, like, when you're covering this, you need to tell me ahead of time, right? Because I don't want them to think that their dad has something that's contagious, that he has HIV or what's contagious. So I need to reiterate to them that, yes, Daddy's blood was sick, but it's a different kind of sickness. He's not contagious. They didn't even give me that. They just talked to my kids about this stuff without even giving me that consideration. Like, that's kind of easy, don't you think?
I remember we had to have permission slips from our parents for certain subjects.
Mm-hmm.
Is that not the case anymore?
So one of my first bills I ever got passed into law, and one of the reasons I ran for office was because my son came home from school and I had found out from actually another parent that they had watched a video that was really upsetting to the kids. And when I asked him about it, he just started to shake and got very physically upset, which wasn't like him at all. He's a tough kid. Like, that just wasn't like him. He usually would tell me everything about school. And as I dug in a little bit deeper, he started to tell me it was about good touch, bad touch, but it got really scary and this happened. So I called the school and I said, can I see the video? Because I'm really confused. I want to be able to talk to them about this. I had asked ahead of time to let me know when they were doing these subjects so that I could reinforce it. Like, they talked about this stuff at Cub Scouts. Like, they let us know. But I wanted to reinforce it and talk to them about it, make sure they understood it, make sure they weren't scared by it, you know, that you could always come to me if there was some situation that you weren't comfortable with. I just asked for that courtesy as a parent. Again, I was a volunteer in the school. And they didn't give me that courtesy. When I asked to see the video, they freaked out. They wouldn't let me see it. I had to go before the school board. It became like this huge thing where the assistant superintendent went on TV.
They're showing our children videos that they want to hide from us?
Yes. So I actually got the law passed. And when I saw it, what happened was, it was an old video. It was like VHS. So it was a little warbly. So to the kids, it was probably a little creepy, right? And there was an uncle, and he was sitting down with his nephew, and they were looking at baseball cards, and down my pants. And the uncle says, because that's what people do who love each other. Now that's bad enough, right? Because in their young minds, third grade minds, they thought they saw it. A lot of them thought they saw the abuse. But then beyond that, during the video, the child comes in contact with his mom, a teacher that he trusts, other people that he could have told about the abuse, but he doesn't. He confronts the uncle alone by himself. And that's what they taught kids to do. And that troubled me more than the other part, right? So I passed a law. It says that if you, for subject matters like that, they have to give parents 2 weeks notice and let them have the opportunity to come in and review the materials. And if they don't think it's appropriate, they can opt their children out and choose a different way to teach them that.
I'm dumbfounded.
I like to tell that story only so that parents know that is out there and that's what the schools are supposed to be doing. So I didn't have my kids after that. They did not take health class. I homeschooled for that one class. You're able to do that in the state of New Hampshire. I decided to bring in a portfolio at the end of the year to make sure we ticked all the boxes. Most of it was actually done in Cub Scouts. They did a lot of the health class stuff. But the following year, I went back in and I sat down with the health teacher and the principal, and I said, so this is now law. Are you going to obey the law? And they said yes. And I said, okay, you just had the puberty talk with the kids. Did you let parents know ahead of time? And she said, we sent the work home with them. I said, did you let them know 2 weeks in advance and let parents have the opportunity to look at the materials? And she said, no, we sent things home with them. I said, so what you're saying to me is
you didn't follow.
You didn't follow the law. You gave it to them, and then they took it home after the fact. My kid is never being in your class again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Victoria. We had a lot of fun subjects tonight. Not really.
We covered a lot.
Fun.
Cool.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for letting me fill in.
And we'll say good luck to JP. And
you are in our prayers, my friend.
And we'll see you next week.